What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. Naruto learns Tsunade's super strength. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. Yep, it was official. Today sucked. Why? Thought Naruto as he sat in ankle-deep water. Can we never have a C-rank mission that stays a C-rank mission? A simple guard mission, they said. A merchant that needed protection from bandits. No problem. And then, sure as the seasons, the problems had appeared. First, it was not so much a merchant that needed protection as a merchant caravan. Granted, they promised to pay extra for the slight deception, but still, a genin team to guard 10 merchants and their shipments? And then there were the reports they'd been given on the potential bandit threat. 1 or 2 groups of maybe 5 bandits each, the merchants had said. Okay, 5 bandits were child's play for even one genin, much less a team. Hell, even Sakura could take out 5 bandits, much less Naruto or, much as he disliked the Teme, Sasuke. It had been an unwelcome surprise, then, to encounter a group of 25 bandits, led by one Masahashi Jiru, a B-rank missing nin. His arrival, Naruto reflected as he listened to the dripping of water in his mindscape, had been the point at which the situation became well and truly crap. Naruto had been holding his own with the aid of his shadow clones when the pasty-faced bastard had appeared next to him and punched him right in the gut with some green-violet glowing jutsu. He wasn't sure what jutsu it had been, Masahashi not having been considerate enough to call out the name of the technique, but he was aware of several important facts. 1. It had given off a faint buzzing sound. 2. It had caused him to lose all muscle control and 3. It had hurt like a bitch. The last memory Naruto had before blacking out was the sound of his scream echoing around him as Kakashi-sensei opened the missing nin's throat. Then it all went dark. You know kid, that fleshbag took you out way too easily. And now he had an overgrown fur wrap running off its mouth as well. Today was just getting better and better, wasn't it? Shut it Baka Fox, not like you were helping any. Seriously kid, your physical skills are pretty pathetic. Really. Even though all Naruto could see was the glowing eyes, he could actually feel the sneer in its voice. I mean, your chakra control's finally approaching tolerable and on a good day you can pass for average in brains, but physically. Pa, big words from the furball in the cage. You talking for a reason, or ya just bored? No kid, I'm offering you a solution. The growling demonic voice was suddenly serious. Allow me a connection to your senses and I'll make your body into something a little closer to perfection than your current shaved ape form. And I suppose you have no other reason for offering this than the simple desire to smell a flower or taste some ramen, huh? How you pink fleshbags came to rule this world I'll never know, the demon sighed. Look, the technique that Pale Simian hit you with burned out most of your voluntary nervous system. If you wish to be able to move again, I suggest you take my offer. I am not going to be stuck in an immobile yellow-headed monkey boy, understand? As long as I'm going to be fixing you, I may as well make you into something I could tolerate being associated with. Then again, the fox's tone became dry. You could always choose to spend your days lying immobile in a bed with a catheter in an unpleasant place. Naruto was silent for a moment before speaking in a speculative tone. So, what changes were you thinking of? Where do I start? Taller, stronger, faster. If you ask nicely, I could have a look for any bloodline limits you might have as well. Taller? You could make me taller? To never be, the shrimp, again. I'm never going to live this down with the other Biju. Yes Brad, I can make you taller. Gimme your word you won't try to escape or take me over and we can deal, fox. Oh, and no fox ears or tail or stuff like that. I'll just be watching through your senses, Brad, like those TV things. It gets surprisingly boring here in this sewer. You have my word, why is it a sewer in here anyway? It's not like I have a dirty mind or something. Shaking off his thoughts, Naruto stepped up to the cage. Okay fox, what do I do? Tear off about a quarter of the seal to let my chakra flow. Then hang onto your ass. Forcing down some final misgivings, the blonde took the seal in hand. Ero Sennin had told him that demons had to keep their word once it was given, as the Kyuubi had. Picturing the life spent limp on a hospital bed, Naruto made his decision. The benefits outweighed the risks. Taking a deep breath, he tore the seal. Like a luminous fog, the red chakra flooded out of the cage, twining about his limbs and surging through the halls of his mind as the Kyuubi began a running dialogue. Hold on Gaki, this is going to hurt. Let's see now, start with the bones first. Correct the calcium deficiency and properly heal all those old fractures. Stimulate lateral bone growth. The fox had been right, it did indeed hurt. The funny thing was, though, it hurt far less than he had expected. More an all-over migraine than the burning agony the fox had implied. Sharpen up the eyesight. Can't have my container needing glasses. After all, tune up the lungs and metabolism. The crap you eat, it's amazing you made it past 3 feet. Boost the other senses. Those Inuzuka think they're the best. Huh? Tweak the immune system. Listening to it ramble, Naruto couldn't help but consider it a good thing that the Kyuubi would be able to share his senses. Fox is getting a bit shack-wacky. No latent bloodline limits, tough luck Gaki. Oh well, I'll just make all the changes hereditary. Right, nearly done, just the stronger, faster, tougher part. Don't bother me, Gaki, it rumbled as Naruto went to speak, this is delicate. Now, strengthen the cell connections in muscle fibers. There are certain comments that, for the safety of all concerned, should not be made. Anyone saying, at least it can't get any worse, for example, will generally be swiftly proven wrong by the law of irony. The one asking, is that all you've got? Will be hit. The one saying, we're out of range, will be shot, and the one saying, I think we've lost them, will be found. Which explains why, mere moments after the Kyuubi's demand of silence, Naruto's nose began to twitch. Panicking, the blonde youth tried vainly to resist as he felt the sneeze building, an act known to be utterly pointless by anyone to make the attempt. No, when the sneeze arrived, all the more powerful for Naruto's attempt to stifle it, it arrived with the force of a hurricane and the volume of an artillery shell. Achoo. The following events occurred in quick succession. The Kyuubi, startled, instinctively pulsed its chakra, causing a momentary but sizable surge. The surge, itself sufficient chakra to create a good 7,000 shadow clones, flooded down the linkage and amplified the strengthening pattern already there. The sudden neural feedback in turn causing Naruto to howl in pain before collapsing, stunned, onto the submerged floor. Whoops. Naruto wasn't sure how a long-eared, 9-tailed, demonic fox the size of a warehouse could actually sound sheepish, but the Kyuubi was making a decent attempt. What did you do, Baka, fox? He hissed through teeth clenched in residual pain. When you sneezed you startled me and I put too much chakra into making you stronger. Naruto was glad for his clearing head as he parsed the sentence, his lips moving as he extracted the Kyuubi's meaning. So, you made me stronger than you meant to? A lot stronger? At the Kyuubi's air, yes, but the blonde youth clambered to his feet with a groan and headed excitedly for the exit. Cool, I'm strong now. Can't wait to test it. It's the big passageway to get back to waking, right? Oi, Gaki, you're stronger but your control's shot to hell. You might, so I'll train a bit, breezed Naruto as he left his subconscious and a quietly fuming Kyuubi behind. It's just some extra strength, after all. Yeah. As the blonde's voice and presence faded, the Kyuubi growled softly. How the hell did that Gaki survive this long? Oh, I just know I'm going to get a headache from this. With a rumbling sigh, the vast vulpine made itself comfortable in the cage and concentrated on the sensations of the link as Naruto woke up. The first thing Naruto became aware of as he awoke was the lack of pain. In face, he would almost go so far as to say, I feel really good. Never been able to say that after an injury before. It was true, though. All the minor aches, pains and twinges that Naruto had come to regard as a fact of life were gone, their very absence providing tremendous pleasure. And the sensations. Even before he opened his eyes, Naruto could tell he was in a hospital, slight smell of disinfectant. That the room was otherwise unoccupied, no other human traces of smell or sound. And that it was morning, sound of bird calls and smell of coffee and toast. All of these together, plus the texture and clean smell of the sheets, told him he was most likely in the recently designated rookie ward, created when Tsunade noted the injury rate among Naruto's social set and deemed putting them all in one place a more economical option. Opening his eyes not only confirmed his conclusions but made him acutely aware of just what people meant when they used the phrase, eyes like a hawk. My God, I was blind before. Initially content to lie there and bask in the sensations, the growling of his overly insistent stomach indicated the time elapsed since his last meal. Fumbling for a moment in search of the pager button for an orderly, he uttered a silent prayer that it would be one of the nice orderlies Baan had been hiring. Crunch. Huh, thought Naruto, gazing at the shards of plastic in his hand, seems a bit more fragile than I remember. Oh well, he thought as he hopped out of bed and wandered to the door, there should be someone outside. Crunch. As Naruto stood in the doorway, several facts presented themselves. First, and least relevant, the door was now open. Second, the reason that the door was now open was largely due to the fact that it had been torn from the frame. Finally, the doorknob, he noticed upon leaning the stricken door against the wall, was now seriously distorted, with fingerprints pressed into the metal. After staring blankly at the hand responsible for a few moments, the stunned blonde cast his thoughts inward. Hey Fox, you there? Yup. Something in the tone suggested amusement, not that Naruto really cared at that moment. About this door I just tore from the wall without really trying? What about it? Just how much stronger did you make me, Fox? Naruto was quite proud of how level he was keeping his mental tone. Well, I'd already brought you to the highest possible natural strength for your frame. Then I was aiming for about 10 times stronger than that. Naruto felt his eyebrow twitch. So how much stronger did you make me? Oh, about 100 times or so. Staggering back to sit on the bed, a glazed look spread over the youth's face. 100 times stronger than the strongest natural human, huh? Well, it's actually more like 113 times, but who's counting? Oh, cool, now I can move house. Literally. Ahaha. Oi kid, come back to me here, growled Naruto's grudging tenant in a worried tone. When the vacant grin and giggling of its jailer failed to cease, the fox concentrated on the sensory link. Damn it Kit, snap out of it. Sensory feedback. Smack. Ite, what the hell? Shut up Kit. The blonde with the big mammaries your monkey troop follows is coming. You may as well tell her what happened, she'll figure it out soon enough on her own. Don't tell anyone else though, no sense throwing oil on a fire. And for Inari's sake, get her to find someone to get your muscle control back up. Now look lively, here she comes. As the sound of heavy footfalls grew closer, Naruto felt an instinctive wince beginning to form. I hope she's in a good mood. Looking at the visage of the Hokage, one might be forgiven for thinking her to be calm, collected and composed. To the eyes of an expert, however, this was most assuredly not the case. Over the years Naruto, and indeed, the rest of the Rookie 12, had come to be quite adept at gauging the mood of Konoha's beloved leader. It was clear to the bombastic blonde, therefore, that goofy behavior and loudness would be a bad move at the moment. Such actions, invalid status notwithstanding, would result in an acute case of punched into the plaster-itis. No, better to let her speak first. The reader will not be surprised to learn that Naruto's impulse control has experienced a sharp increase during Tsunade's tenure as Hokage. Tsunade's first move, seizing him in a hug that did its best to crush his spine and ribcage into powder, was not unexpected. The lack of the sensation of creaking bone and incipient asphyxiation, on the other hand, was. Ha ha ha, that's quality work right there. See that? 300 kilograms of pressure and not a crack from that ribcage. Kyuubi work. Proof against killer death hugs of doom. Will you keep your crazy contained, Baka Fox? Hey Baan. Speaking, it seemed, has been a mistake. What the hell do you mean, hey Baan? How the hell did you get yourself hit with an A- rank torture jutsu on an escort mission? And, rage faded and comprehension dawned in the taller Baan's eyes. Naruto found a shaking finger leveled at him. How the hell are you awake and moving? The jutsu. Body prison. You should be paralyzed. Naruto scratched the back of his head, chuckling nervously. Hee hee. I got better? Judging from the twitching eyebrow that his answer was insufficient, Naruto sighed, jammed the door back into its frame as best he could, gathering a startled glance from Tsunade, and sat back on the bed. Okay, I got hit with the jutsu. Tsunade sighed. This was shaping up to be a 3-aspirin conversation. Alright, let me go through it again to make sure I understand. You got hit with the body prison jutsu, passed out and woke up in your mindscape, whereupon you met the Kyuubi. Naruto nodded. The Kyuubi, an ancient demon of incalculable power, then offered to fix you up, indeed, improve you, in exchange for a link with your senses. Another nod. During the process of upgrading your body you somehow sneezed, in a mindscape, causing the Kyuubi to accidentally make you some 120 times stronger than normal. You then woke up and, misjudging your strength, ripped the door from its frame. Is that all pretty accurate? Yeah, that's about it. You okay, Bon? Your eyebrows twitching. Naruto, said Tsunade in a sweet tone that nonetheless sent chills up his spine. When the demon that very nearly destroyed Konoha offered you a boon, did you ever stop to wonder about its motives? Like, maybe, escaping from the seal and laying waste to the village? Smoothing hair that had been blown back by the force of Tsunade's roar, Naruto glared defiantly back at her. It sounded like a better option than being a vegetable on a hospital bed for the rest of my life. Besides, he continued more quietly, Kyuubi gave me its word it wouldn't try to escape, and Eros Sennin told me that demons have to keep their words. Tsunade, recognizing further argument to be futile, sighed. Alright, setting that aside for the moment, we're going to have to run a proper examination to gauge the changes you've undergone, organize some physiotherapy, and gurgle growl, get you something to eat before you start chewing on the bedsheets. Again, Shizune. Yes, Tsunade-sama? Tsunade's dark-haired apprentice asked as she swung the door open, to have it fall to the floor with a crash. Stepping in before the sputtered apologies could progress, Tsunade raised her voice. It's alright, Shizune, Naruto did that. Could you head down to Ichiraku's and get 2 Naruto specials? Naruto did that. Of course, Tsunade-sama. I'll be back shortly. Now, Tsunade continued as Shizune left. I'm going to run a diagnostic jutsu to get an idea of the changes the fox made. I'll have Jiraiya check the seal later as well. Now, hold still. Hands glowing green with medical chakra, Tsunade leaned forward. Tsunade's expression was an interesting study as her eyes widened and face blanched, before it relaxed into a look Naruto mentally pegged as, it could only happen to Naruto. The light of the jutsu fading, Tsunade gave a long-suffering sigh. How do you get into situations like this, Naruto? Recognizing the question as rhetorical, Naruto declined to answer, instead raising an eyebrow in enquiry. So, what's changed, Bon? Well, you've gained about 20 centimeters in height. Your resting heartbeat is 30 beats per minute. Your neural transmission speed is insane and it looks like you'll never get ill again, the way your immune and digestive systems are now. I'm taller, faster and healthier. A sigh. Yes, Naruto, you're taller, faster and healthier. And the strength boost? Tsunade mentally cringed. This part would potentially be the hardest to deal with. Yes, your muscles are considerably denser and your skeleton, tendons and connective tissue have been strengthened proportionally. Essentially, Tsunade decided to summarize, seeing the glazed look creeping onto Naruto's face, you are much stronger and much tougher. You'll probably never break a bone or tear a muscle again. Naruto's expression was rather like the sun coming up. Damn it, Naruto, I have to tell you the drawbacks now. Stop making me feel guilty. The trouble, Naruto, is that you have muscle control only for your former strength. Is that why I accidentally broke the door? Asked Naruto in reply, face creased in a pensive frown. Exactly. It's as though an academy student were suddenly given a cage's chakra reserves. Too much force with too little control. Nodding as the younger blonde's eyes widened in comprehension, Tsunade continued. I hate to say it, Naruto, but at the moment you're a danger to yourself and those around you. You vitally need to get control of your strength, and I'm not able to teach you. What? But you're stronger than anyone, Bon. Why can't you teach me? Because my super strength technique is just that, a technique. Since it only activates when I will it, muscle control isn't an issue. No, let me think about this for a moment, Naruto. Tsunade was spared further badgering and a further slump in Naruto's mood by the return of Shizune with the desired ramen. Ramen, thanks Shizune Nichan. Oh, I can't why. Crunch splat. Ah, hot. Startled from her thoughts by Naruto's shriek, Tsunade looked up to behold a frantic Naruto toweling off ramen broth and noodles from his lap, shards of broken crockery festooning the bed. Shizune looking on in worried incomprehension. Ah, right. Shizune, Naruto's unable to control his strength at the moment. You'll have to feed him for the time being, at least until he gets some control back. The choices, Naruto, she snapped over his indignant exclamations, are either being fed ramen by Shizune or having nothing but hospital soup through a straw until your therapy is complete. Mentally comparing the two options suppled, Naruto settled down and prepared to receive the ramen with the respect it deserved. Shizune, for her part, was blushing furiously but unsure why. It's not like I haven't fed patients before, after all. Yes, that's it. Think of Naruto-kun a patient. Picking up the second bowl, and noting Tsunade's foresight at specifying 2 bowls, she took up some noodles in the hashi and held it out to the blonde. Here you are, Naruto-kun. Open wide. Salivating, Naruto took the noodles into his mouth. Crunch, crunch. Ramen doesn't go, crunch. What the hell? Were you really that hungry, Naruto? Asked Shizune shakily, staring at the now shorter chopsticks. Naruto sheepishly spat the bitten off ends into his hand. Sorry. Shrugging, the dark-haired medic picked up the other pair of hashi and resumed the process of transferring ramen from bowl to belly, its recipient taking care to keep his teeth at a distance. The feeding progressing apace, Tsunade tined the pair out and began to ponder. Okay, training the kid in his strength. I can't do it. Jiraiya's had too much influence over him as it is, and he's a ninjutsu specialist anyway. Casting her mind through the ranks of Chunin and Junin, the blonde Hokage grew more and more frustrated. Kurenai? No. Kakashi? No. Asuma? Maybe, but I'd never get him to agree, lazy bum. Ibiki? No. Anko? No. Burr. Hayate? No. Damn it, curse the ninjutsu focus of this village. I need a taijutsu specialist? Oh no. Blanching, Tsunade racked her brain, trying desperately to think of someone, anyone, else. To no avail. Please Naruto, forgive me for what I must do. A loud and satisfied sigh indicated that the ramen transfer procedure was complete. Clearing her throat, Tsunade gained the attention of her assistant and surrogate brother. Shizune, go to Training Ground 17 and inform Maida Guy that I wish to speak with him concerning Naruto's training ASAP. Hi, Tsunade-sama, you want super bushy brows to train me? Asked Naruto as Shizune left, his tone equal parts thoughtful and worried. Yes Naruto, though you will call him Guy-sensei, understand? At his nod, she continued. As a taijutsu specialist he has an intimate knowledge of muscle control, which makes him your best bet for training in the village. But I swear, if I see so much as a hint of green spandex or flames of youth, there will be a reckoning. Yeah, Guy-sensei trained Lee, and Lee's really strong, so he could probably train me really well. Ain't like Kakashi-sensei'll train me, after all. The last was almost whispered by the younger blonde, but one did not become Hokage without being able to listen, and Tsunade was forced to stifle a growl at the thought of the cyclopic shinobi. If he weren't so skilled I'd have fired him for his attitude alone. About to step in to break Naruto from his silence, she was preempted as the hyper-blonde bounded from the bed with a cry of, "Oh yeah, I haven't even looked at the changes yet," as he headed for the attached bathroom in search of a mirror. Oi Naruto, be careful of the crunch door. Never mind, this was a hospital. Surely they had aspirin somewhere. Naruto sheepishly leaned the stricken door against the wall and slipped into the small room. Yata, I'm taller. For all his complaining, for all the inconvenience the fox's changes looked like bringing, he had to admit that when it came to body sculpting the big furball did good work. As Tsunade had said, he stood a good 20 centimeters taller. Beyond that, he was broader of shoulder, tighter of stomach and longer of limb. The baby fat had left him, replaced with sharply defined, and quite obviously effective, muscle. His hair, still in spikes that defied both control and gravity, now reached past his shoulders in a yellow mane. Oi, fox. Yeah brat, why'd you make my hair longer? It's not like it has anything to do with being stronger or faster or anything. Because long hair is cool and manly, responded the Kyuubi in the slow, clear tones used when addressing idiots and fans of reality television. A naked ape like you needs all the help you can get. It's only a pity you're too young for a beard. Naruto pictured himself with waist-length hair and a blonde beard and felt a chill. Nope, I don't think I want to go any further with that line of thought. Naruto's rumination was interrupted by the sound of approaching thunder, interspersed with the occasional shout of, "Youth. Sounds like Super Fuzzy Brows is here. Better head back out." Carefully edging around the door and back into the main room, he had just climbed hack into bed, crushing a railing in the process, when a green spandex-clad typhoon arrived. Yosh, As I promised your most youthful apprentice, Hokage-sama, I have arrived. Aspirin. Lots of aspirin. Big aspirin. Right, guy. Tsunade muttered to herself before straightening. Naruto has suffered a complication from a paralysis jutsu, leading to his muscle density and reaction time exceeding his control. You are to train him until his control is back to scratch. Tsunade's heart sank at the look of incomprehension on the Junin's face. Let me, Bon. Lee taught me to speak a little youth. Naruto cleared his throat. I'll need a wash after this, I just know it. Guy-sensei, our youthful Hokage wishes you to train me. My flames of youth have recently flared into a conflagration beyond my ability to control. Your youthful training skills are needed to restore my youthfulness to balance. I feel so dirty. There, kid. It'll be okay. Ah, I see, cried the exuberant Junin as understanding dawned. Of course I shall train you. Arrive at training ground 17 after your team meeting and I shall begin your youthful training. I shall now go and prepare. By your leave, Hokage-sama? Guy bounded from the room at Tsunade's wordless nod, passing a stunned-looking Shizune in the corridor. You have a gift for languages, huh Naruto? Tsunade queried in a slightly vacant tone. I don't want to talk about it. The sound of grumbling interspersed with stomping footfalls filled the air as Naruto trudged toward training ground 17. Stupid team. Not my fault they didn't believe me. Had a letter from Bon, but no, Naruto can't possibly have gotten stronger, Rossum Frossum. The astute reader will note that Naruto was in rather less than a good mood. Such an observation would be the truth. In fact, the blonde demon container would be forgiven for thinking that the world, Kami and causality itself were all against him. A myriad small events conspiring to bring him down. The first of these had been waking up. Under normal circumstances a pleasant experience, in this case he had accidentally put a fist through a wall as he stretched, for which he was yelled at by a nurse. Taking a shower had resulted in cracked tiles, 3 towels torn to shreds, a tap accidentally folded closed and another scolding. Shizune's arrival to feed him breakfast, though still embarrassing and regrettably ramenless, came as a relief, as the orderly didn't seem so gung-ho about yelling at him with the Hokage's apprentice present. And then there was the meeting with the rest of Team 7. Managing to dress, with a little help from Shizune, and make it to their meeting place with only minor breakages, mostly doors and wall panels, he had received rather less than a warm welcome. Hey guys, you're late, Baka, snapped Sakura, apparently displeased that her Sasuke ogling had been disturbed. I was in the hospital, Sakura-chan, he said slowly. I got hurt, remember? Wow, what fellow feeling for a teammate, he thought sarcastically. Can't have been too bad, Dobi, you're moving now. What's with the hair, anyway? Sasuke spoke, cocking an eyebrow at Naruto's new ponytail. See? Long hair gets you noticed. What did I tell you? It's a side effect of the jutsu, Teme. Jealous? Hardly, muttered the Uchiha with a slight smirk. It makes you look fruity. What? That's it, I am. I'm gonna go all foxfire on his gloomy ass. Tuning out the enraged ranting of his tenant, Naruto was about to respond with a barb of his own when a puff of smoke heralded the arrival of Kakashi. Yo, you're late. Wow, deja vu, thought Naruto as Sakura's voice rose. Yeah, sorry, but I got caught up in a discussion on the nature of existence and lost track of time. Liar. As with the first yell, Sakura's voice again rose alone, prompting Kakashi's brow to furl in curiosity. Not that anyone but he could tell, of course. Okay, anyway, sparring now. Sakura with Sasuke and Naruto with me. As good a time as any to bring it up, Naruto supposed. Anyo, sensei, I have training with Team 9 today, so I gotta go. Hold it, Naruto, snapped Kakashi as the blonde turned to leave. I understand that you might not want to spar with me, but please don't make up poor excuses. Pot to kettle, meatbag. Gritting his teeth, Naruto forced his tone to remain light. It's not an excuse. Some effect of that jutsu made me a lot stronger, so now I have to train with Guy-sensei to get my control back. Baon gave me a letter, look. Get serious Dobi, that's the worst excuse you've come up with yet. Giving the letter, carried in a thick steel box to prevent inadvertent crushings, a cursory glance, Kakashi cut off Naruto's rejoinder lazily. Well, this all looks authentic, but Naruto is the one who forged a note for half of Anbu to receive compulsory head lice treatments. Naruto chucked gently. Ah, good times. All those shiny Anbu scalps glinting in the sun. So I'll spar one round with Naruto to determine the truth. What? Naruto made one final plea for sanity. Seriously, Kakashi-sensei, it's a bad idea. Can't I just crush a rock or something? Too late. Kakashi was already rushing at him, fist arching toward his face. Giving a startled yell, Naruto swing his fist out on instinct. THUDW whoosh smack. I told him. I told all of them. But did they listen? No. Kakashi had eventually prized from the tree trunk in which he had been embedded and taken to hospital to have his broken ribs, torn muscles, sprains and concussion treated. Upon learning the reasons for his injuries, Tsunade had him promptly admitted to her new, morons ward. Sakura, upon seeing her sensei temporarily tree-bound, promptly smacked Naruto about the head, resulting in bruised knuckles for her and a new appreciation for the fox's changes for him. Unfortunately, Sakura seemed to view this as a challenge, prompting her to eschew fists in favor of a tree branch, the effects of which managed to make it through his new skull. Explain to me why you like that pink-haired monkey, Kit? Her calm, kind and forgiving nature, no doubt. Sometimes I wonder myself, Fox, he sighed wearily. Quite often lately, in fact. Sure, it was Sakura's energy that had caught his eye to begin with, but having that energy focused on him in the form of blows and criticism wasn't quite what he'd been hoping for. A little like lightning, he thought. Beautiful and exciting from a distance, but something of a health hazard at too close a range. Poetic. Nice to see you can use your brain for more than keeping your skull from caving in. Shut it, Fox. Usagi no Tsuki called, he wants his ears back. Taking a vindictive pleasure from the angry spluttering of his tenant, Naruto arrived at the training ground. Now, if I were a pair of eyebrows with a ninja attached, where would I? Welcome, Naruto-kun. His fists planted on his hips, Guy straightened from where he had appeared. Directly behind Naruto. Ah, Naruto-kun, it is good to see your youthful self. Come, let us tame your youthful energy though rigorous training. Guy's manly spiel tapered off as he noticed that his youthful charge was no longer before him, having leapt into the foliage at his dramatic entry. Naruto-kun, are you alright, my youthful student? Ah, I'm fine, Guy-sensei, called Naruto from the branch he was hugging some 20 meters up. I'll be down in a short while, but, I'm going to stay here and, twitch, for a few minutes, if that's alright. Guy beamed in relief. His youthful pupil had not abandoned his training. Yosh, quite alright, Naruto-kun. I shall go and fetch the rest of my youthful team, that your training may be combined with theirs into a great flame of youthful energy. I go. His final yell echoing through the trees, and causing a flock of birds to bolt from the canopy in panic. The enthusiastic Junin left at a gallop. That guy scares me, Kit. Me too, Fox. Me too. Several minutes later saw Naruto out of the tree and facing Team Guy. A round of exuberant, reserved, Neji, and friendly, Tenten, greetings later, Guy got down to business. Yosh, the youthful Naruto-kun has, as the result of a most unyouthful kinjutsu used upon him, gained great powers of physical youth. Wow, he can actually speak in capitals. Scary. Sadly, Guy continued, Naruto-kun's flames of youth are burning uncontrolled. We shall skillfully train him to tame his youthfulness to his will. Yosh, Naruto-kun's youth will shine forth brightly. I shall assist him. If I cannot, I will walk up Hokage Monument backwards. Guy-sensei. Tenten, recognizing the warning signs, grabbed Naruto's sleeve urgently. Naruto, look away if you value your sight. Turning just in time, the blonde youth shuddered at the knife-edged shadows cast by the sunset and sea genjutsu. You should thank the bun girl, Gaki. Some things even I can't heal. Noting that the light had faded, Naruto cast Tenten a grateful smile and looked to the green-clad duo once more. So, the first thing we must do is ascertain the limits of your new strength and control. Naruto-kun, please punch that training log as hard as you can. Hi, Guy-sensei, replied the blonde, a slight trepidation in his voice. Taking a deep breath to stifle his nerves, he drew back a fist and swung. Guy-sensei, I have located the training log. Guy tapped the mouthpiece of his headset. A most youthful device, he thought. Yes, Neji-kun. Where is it? There was an uncharacteristic amusement in the Hyuga's tone as he responded. It landed in the merchant district. No casualties, but it destroyed the latest shipment of the Icha Icha series. All pulverized. Guy felt a moment's inner conflict. It was against the ways of youth to take pleasure in the misfortunes of another. On the other hand, the books his eternal rival so enjoyed were most unyouthful. Compromising, Guy allowed himself a brief, satisfied chuckle. Oblivious to his sensei's inner struggle, Neji continued his report. I've explained it as a training mishap and instructed the merchant to request compensation from the Hokage's office. I'm returning now. Very good, Neji-kun. Over and out. Turning to an amused Tenten and rather embarrassed Naruto, the great green beast smiled encouragingly. Do not be ashamed, Naruto-kun. We shall learn from this and go to a more distant training ground for future training. Now, let us move on to Anyo, sensei? Interjected Tenten, rising to her feet. Could we see how Naruto can handle missile weapons? Why, Tenten-chan, wouldn't stronger just be stronger? Asked Naruto in a curious tone. No, not at all. Tenten was suddenly in his face and speaking rapidly. Stronger fast-twitch muscles allow a greater throwing strength, which in turn allows a higher velocity and flatter trajectory from the weapon, leading to higher damage potential and a longer range. It's not the same at all. A bead of nervous sweat rolled down the blonde's face in the silence that followed. Ukai, I think I'll see how a kunai works out. She was twinkling Gaki. During that weapons rant she was twinkling. Hold me, there Fox. You're safe now. I'll throw the kunai and the nice weapon girl will calm down. Promise? Taking aim, and making sure that the target was one of the thicker logs available, the blonde powerhouse drew back his arm and whipped the kunai down. Whip tee hunk thunk thunked hunk crack. Okay, the kunai went through the post, and the tree behind it, and the two trees behind that, and embedded itself up to the ring in a granite boulder. Ah, Naruto sighed, and in the process cut a good 10 centimeters off of Neji's hair as he was coming back from finding the first log. Great, I'm gonna be paying for that one later, I just know it. You, kunai, hair, okay Neji, just calm. Ah. As the rest of Team Guy worked to calm a certain shell-shocked Hyuga, with a distinct lack of success, if the continued horrified squawks were any indication, Guy strode over to Naruto. Upon observing your youthful demonstrations, I think in the future we shall avoid any further striking or throwing. No, he said as he cast a measuring look at the boy, I have an excellent course of training for you. Yosh, let us begin. In the end, Neji was fed a youthful calming tablet, when his nervous twitching showed no signs of fading, resulting in the unusual sight of a mellow, cheerful Hyuga. I hope it wears off soon, thought the blonde as he caught another of the steel spheres flicked at him by Guy. That toothy grin looks really creepy on him. Concentrate, Naruto-kun. Grench. Naruto sighed as he dropped the distorted lump of steel to rest with the others around his feet. Maintain your youthful concentration, Naruto-kun. Your mind must rule your muscles. Hi, sensei, he replied, another ball smacking into his hand. He had to admit, under all the eccentricities Maida Guy was good at what he did. After sending Neji into chemical calmness, the green-clad Junin had started Naruto off on control training. Naruto's task was to catch the hollow steel spheres thrown at him without either dropping or crushing them. To add a further element of difficulty to the task, he was then to throw the spheres at the one remaining training log, without either punching them into or through it. Guy had explained, upon noting Naruto's look of bafflement, that this would teach him to control both his gripping and arm strength, these being the most immediately important for social interaction. That made sense. The trouble was that he didn't seem to be improving. Sure, it was a bit absurd to expect leaps and bounds in the first day of training, but surely there should have been some improvement. But no. The ground around him was littered with squashed steel lumps and the training log looked as though it had faced an assault by giant termites. Fortunately, Naruto was spared further frustration by the arrival of Shizune bearing an amused expression and a bento. Well, I can see you've been busy, Naruto-kun. Kakashi will probably be out of traction in a week or two, if you were wondering. Now, she gestured him closer as she unwrapped the bento, it's time for lunch. An excellent idea, Shizune-san. Come, my cute students, let us revive our flames of youth with healthy nutrition. Naruto, grumbling slightly about, looking forward to being able to feed myself again. Seated himself next to Shizune and looked disappointedly at the sushi, rice and omelette the lunchbox held. "No," said Shizune firmly as he went to speak, "it's not ramen." "Yes, I know you'd prefer ramen. No, you may not have any, and because you need to eat better to be healthy, that's why." "What?" the dark-haired medic Nin asked defensively to the astonished stares. Guy nervously coughed into his hand. "Oh, nothing, Shizune-san, nothing." A moment of silence overtook the group, broken only by Neji's occasional whimper over how damn good his rice and pickles were. For all his intended protests about the lack of ramen-y goodness, Naruto found that he was enjoying this lunch. The food was quite good and the weather was nice and all, but, he thought, it was the company that really made the scene. Eating with Team 7 was usually tense, dull, exhausting, or a mixture of all three, depending on the circumstances. And that was when Team 7 ate together. The more common routine was for Kakashi to disappear, most likely to read his orange book, Sasuke to stalk off to brood, or eat, or brood and eat, Sakura to follow him, and Naruto to eventually wander to Ichiraku's. Not, on the whole, overly enjoyable. In many ways, Team Guy couldn't be more different. Not only did they eat together almost every day, Guy claimed it to be youthful, apparently, but they talked. Granted, Neji's loquaciousness may have been an after-effect of the calming tablet, and Tenten's topic of choice involved the words sharp, edge, and stabbing, with disturbing frequency, and with Guy and Lee it was more a matter of reminding them to stop talking, but still. Lost in his musings, Naruto missed the curious look appearing on Tenten's face until she spoke, waving at Kunai for attention. "Hey Naruto, why is Shizune-san feeding you?" About to answer, Naruto was preempted by Lee, who, having put 2 and 2 together, got 5. "Yosh, Naruto-kun, your flames of youth have led you to romance with the beautiful Shizune-san. Well done, my rival. I must now double my efforts to get Sakura-chan to notice me." The couple in question stiffened, stared at each other, blushed and leapt to their feet with simultaneous shouts of, "It's not like that. Naruto-kun is strong enough that he tends to crush bowls and break utensils, so it's my job to help him eat until his control develops more." Shizune continued, calming down a little. "Oh." Tenten looked startled for a moment, then thoughtful. "Huh, I never thought about it like that. I guess you can be too strong." Again a silence overtook the group, each member lost in their own thoughts, apart from Neji, who was lost in a pleasant daydream of Kitten World. Plans were made, decisions reached, and, in one case, mental schematics drawn up. Inevitably, though, the meal ended and the silence broke as Guy, having stowed his lunch supplies somewhere, leapt to his feet. "Yosh, our youthful flames have been stoked, our bodies rested, and now we may train again. Rise, my youthful students." Rewrapping the bento and patting back into place, hair blown loose during Guy's youthful yelling, Shizune stood and looked at Naruto with a smile. "Well, I'll be going now." "Oh yes, Tsunade-sama wants to see you and Guy-san for a progress report after you finish up here, so don't be late, nay?" "Okay Shizune-ni-chan, yosh." As Shizune walked off, stared after by a slightly flushed Neji, the great green beast faced Naruto, exuberant manner abruptly gone. "Now, Naruto-kun, we will begin taijutsu training. For one to truly master a taijutsu style, one must learn and develop muscle memory and control. The more subtle the style, the less dependent it is on brute force, the more control and precision is required to utilize it. It is this requirement that makes such styles ideal for our purposes. Do you understand?" Naruto nodded slowly, slightly apprehensive at the changed demeanor of his sensei. "Like, hitting a big target hard is pretty easy, but it's harder to hit a small target with the same force? You'd normally have to slow the strike down to make it easier to hit?" Guy smiled approvingly. "Essentially, yes. The essential difference between soft styles, such as the Hyuga's Juken, and hard styles, my Goken being a prime example, is in the degree of precision required. The targets for kicks, punches and the like are by necessity broad, while the tenketsu targeted in Juken are very small, demanding greater precision to hit but not reliant on physical strength and thus more suited to those of a less muscular build. By teaching you a soft style, Naruto-kun, we will be training you to apply strength worthy of the Goken with the precision of the Juken." Guy grinned at the wide-eyed expression on the face of his newest student. It seems he's realized the implications of that. I like this lad. Now, he continued, of all the styles I know, there are only a few suited to your needs. If you will create perhaps a dozen shadow clones, I will demonstrate and explain those styles I have mastered, and we will move from there. Now, let us begin. Although freaky and unexpected, Naruto was forced to admit that serious Guy knew his stuff. Explaining the moves and styles used while in pitched battle with his clones, who, as they had discovered when a deflected kick left a clone embedded knee-deep in a tree, shared every jot of Naruto's new strength, Guy had eventually concluded that the Silent River style best suited the blonde. After dispelling the final clone in a move that resembled nothing so much as skipping a stone, he had explained that Silent River mimicked the motions and attitude of flowing water, spiraling around obstacles, entrapping and slowing enemy motion, and ultimately drowning the opponent's ability to fight. Hearing Guy Sensei's explanation, Naruto concluded that Silent River sounded pretty cool. A soft style would have to be less tiring than the hard ones too. Right? That thought lasted right until the moment training started. Guy had, somehow, rigged up a series of rope-suspended logs from the branches above and set them to swinging at Naruto as he walked below them. The goal, apparently, was to circle around the logs like a leaf in a stream and tap them as they went past, applying just enough force to give them another swing, but not so much that they orbited their branch until they ran out of rope, as had happened to the first log. And the third log avoided this fate via the unfortunate occurrence of Naruto failing to avoid it, resulting in him being launched head over heels into Tenten, who had been conducting target practice just a little too close. It had, he thought later on, been an interesting experience. Though clearly embarrassed and a little angry, she'd gone red in the face. That meant she was angry, right? Tenten had not pounded him into the ground, had not called him lots of nasty names, and had not, in fact, gotten mad at him at all. Sure, she'd shoved him off good and quick. He'd been afraid to push off himself for fear of hurting her, but she'd accepted his apology, helped him up, and calmly gone back to her training. Huh? He thought as he moved through a basic kata Guy has assigned him to practice. Maybe it's just Sakura and Ino who react like that. Oh, and Baon, but she's used to Arrow Sennin, after all. That reminds me. I've got a favor to ask. Instantly wary, Naruto responded. What is it? I want you to get me a copy of Mumble Mumble. A copy of what? Mumble Mumble. Speak up, you overgrown rug. A copy of ICHA, damn it. Naruto froze in mid-kata. The demon sealed within me is a pervert. It is now official. I am in hell. Come on Kit, just the first volume. Please? I'm bored. Pay. Arrow Kitsune. Naruto mentally snorted as he started the kata once again. I'll make it worth your while. The growling, demonic voice made a valiant effort to sound wheedling. How? Naruto cursed as he stumbled in the drifting footwork demanded of the kata and reset his stance. The ramen world dream, every night for a week? No deal, replied Naruto as he clumsily attempted a spiraling palm sweep. I get that dream anyway. The use of a tail of my chakra on demand? Naruto swung backwards in an evasive move, nearly falling over, and considered for a moment before responding. Tempting, but no deal. Just one more thing to learn to control. Okay. How about I teach you an art of reading people, strategy, wit and intuition? Naruto paused again. He was fairly sure the old fleabag was trying to pull a fast one, but that honestly sounded like a pretty useful skill to learn. Okay, assuming I even agree to this. Where's this training going to happen? And how would I get the book to you in the first place? In your mindscape while you're sleeping, Kit. As for the book, make a shadow clone while you're holding it. Then dispel the clone while concentrating on it coming here and voila. Okay, deal. But this better be a really cool and useful skill. And if I hear so much as one perverted giggle out of you, I'm coming in there with a hedge trimmer and shaving you bald, understand? Yeah. Get started on that kata again Gaki, the green one's coming back. Observing the young blonde's form as he struggled with the drifting motions the style required, Guy found himself impressed. Young Naruto-kun showed an admirable work ethic, facing the tasks assigned him with a determination rare in one so young, trusting in his sensei that they would be to his benefit. Noting that Naruto had finished the kata, In a circling step that nearly dropped him on his backside, the green-clad Junin clapped his hands for attention. Yosh, Naruto-kun, you have impressed me with your youthful drive. Practice that kata 5 times before you retire at night and a further 5 upon rising in the morning, and I am confident you will have it mastered within a week. Naruto-kun, your flames of youth are an inspiration to me, shouted Lee from where he had materialized next to Guy. I am proud to have you as an eternal rival. Naruto-kun, Lee, Naruto-kun, Lee, Naruto-kun, Lee, yes? Naruto gestured to Guy, who was glowering at his mini-me with an ominous twitch in one eyebrow. I think Guy-sensei was still talking. Oh, sorry. With a final warning glance at Lee, Guy continued, facing the 2 final members of the team. Training Naruto-kun has been classified an ongoing A-rank mission for us, so we shall meet here at 0630 hours until Naruto-kun has properly tamed his flames of youth. Now, Team 9, dismissed. Neji, ensure that you get lots of sleep tonight. Kittens, Tenten, we will be needing at least 100 more training spheres. I hope that will not be a problem. The bun-haired girl shook her head with a smile. No problem, Guy-sensei. Dad said it makes a nice change from making kunai all the time. Your dad makes kunai? Asked Naruto, impressed. Yeah, replied Tenten with a broad grin. He's a weaponsmith, one of the best in the village. Higurashi Arms and Armor. Drop by sometime, I'll give you a tour. Special, teammate of Tenten, discount too, if you're good. I'll definitely come by. Thanks, Tenten-chan. With a parting smile, Tenten swiftly collected the lumps of discarded steel into a sack and wandered off, leaving Naruto to his thoughts. Well, that makes some sense. All those pointy things would have cost a fortune if she'd had to buy them at the regular outfitters. His musings were interrupted by Guy's hand on his shoulder. Nodding at the unspoken message, the orange youth set off beside his sensei to their audience with the Hokage. As Lee's shouting, something about showing his flames of youth to the lovely Sakura-chan. Now that just sounded weird, faded into the distance, Naruto again fell into introspection. Well, they're different and a bit odd, but I like this team. He smiled. I think I'm gonna enjoy this training. Most people, looking at Team Guy, would be quick to categorize them, and equally fast to assume that their assessment was complete and accurate. Guy, Konoha's insane azure beast, a green-loving, youth-obsessed taijutsu enthusiast. Lee, Guy's clone, or protege if they were feeling charitable. Assigned to some that craziness was communicable. Neji, the textbook Hyuga, stoic, quite, elitist. And Tenten? Oh, the weapons girl on Guy's team. The tomboy with the armory of things that go, stab. There was something about being a shinobi, Tenten thought, that led one to be typecast by others. Once you joined a team, it wasn't long before some ability, habit, preference or quirk was noted, and then good luck escaping the nickname. And on the surface, these assessments were accurate enough, if pretty shallow. But in a village that exhorted its citizens to look underneath the underneath, they ignored so much as to be virtually useless. Guy-sensei, for example, and unbeknownst to most of Konoha, could play Go with an expertise rivaling the Nara, and would commit moderate acts of mayhem in exchange for a well-cooked berry tart. Lee, while certainly as youthful as his sensei, had an absolute passion for horror movies of all things, that on the one, and only one, time Tenten had accompanied him had sent her shrieking in the first 10 minutes. It had been 3 weeks before she could sleep with the lights off again. Neji, while typically a poster child for the Stoics and president of Emotions Anonymous, went absolutely gooey when presented with any kind of baby animal, kittens, as they had discovered with the help of the calming tablet, in particular. Tenten had seen his room once after helping him back after an injury. The sight of shelf upon shelf of stuffed animals next to a kunai rack would, she was certain, remain with her for life. And then there was Tenten herself. Tomboyish, tough, weapons specialist. And that was generally all most people cared to learn about her. Had they investigated a little further, as indeed her teammates had, they might learn of her idolizing of Tsunade-sama, the slug Sanin. Or the fact that, while she rather liked snakes, and had only a little fear of spiders, the sight of a snail would leave her quivering with horror, disgust. But the one thing that no one knew, not her parents, not her teacher, not her teammates, was that Higurashi Tenten was a romantic. Not in the soppy, brooding, gloomy yet still noble prince, Please rescue me and sweep me off on your white horse. Way, of course. She might be a romantic, but she was still a kunoichi, after all. No, Tenten was one who admired the underdog, the one who tried hard and never gave up. The ones who had experienced pain, loss, hardship and yet were still standing strong. Which was the reason Tenten was currently in her father's forge, laboring with hammer, lathe, furnace, file and quench. I bet Naruto'll just love these, she thought as she lowered the hollow cylinder into the brine, clouds of steam flashing up as it cooled. It would be safe to say that Naruto had impressed the bun-haired girl. Sure, she'd been awed when the orange Superball had beaten Neji in the final Chunin exam, but she was a staunch follower of the "don't judge him till you know" school of thought. Basing a character assessment off a single fight was just stupid. Yesterday's training had, in fact, been the first time she'd really talked with the blonde youth and she was favorably impressed. No doubt most would expect her to be making squee noises at the thought of his throwing the kunai through the trees and, yes, she was a little giddy at the thought, but it wasn't like she was addicted to weapons or anything. Weapons, with their lovely shape and satisfying heft and pretty play of light on their well-honed edges and… No, what had impressed her had been brought home at lunch. The boy had needed help just to eat. Fingers that could crush a kunai and yet couldn't handle hashi. It would have been all too east, she thought, for Naruto to have fallen into a brooding sulk over the changes. Hell, she wasn't sure she'd have really blamed him if he had, either. Imagine not being able to touch for fear of destroying the object in question. But somehow, the blonde dynamo was still there, still cheerful and facing Guy-sensei's training head-on. It was that aspect of his character that Tenten admired. Anyone who could face a challenge like that and stay smiling was strong. And Tenten liked that. Still, Naruto could probably use some encouragement. Which was just what one Higurashi Tenten intended to deliver. Waking from her reverie and glancing at the clock, the bun-haired blacksmith quickly wrapped her creations in a cloth and trotted out the door and off to her team meeting. Yeah, Naruto's going to love them. Smack swish thwack, smack swish thwack, smack granch. Damn it, concentrate, Naruto-kun. Smack swish crunch. Graw. Cheer up Naruto, at least it didn't punch right through this time. Thanks Tenten-chan. Despite his frustration at yet another sphere embedded in the new training log, Naruto smiled. He was improving. Where before the log had been essentially pureed and the crushed spheres had formed drifts around his feet, today his control had improved enough that the log was, if perforated, at least still standing. The training balls at his feet only numbered in the dozens, as well. Good work, my youthful student. Boomed Guy with a proud look. Your youthful control is improving already. Now, perform the first kata of Silent River as smoothly as you can and we shall stop for our noonday meal. The sunny blonde grinned broadly as he began the swirling motions of the dance of the windswept pool. Today was good. He was improving, albeit slowly. No one was criticizing or yelling at him. Guy-sensei didn't count. That was shouting, not yelling. Very different thing, and best of all, Shizune Nichan had, after some pleading and the use of puppy eyes no jutsu, agreed to bring ramen for lunch. Water. Move like water, he thought, stepping through the quiet, spiraling motions of the kata. Thinking of Shizune brought his mind back to the meeting last night. Truth be told, Guy-sensei's report had both shocked and pleased him. Up until then, only Iruka-sensei had been quite that openly positive about his progress and training. The academy teachers had done their level best to keep him ignorant and demoralized. Kakashi-sensei hardly ever trained his team at all, and Ero Sennin would occasionally mutter something on the theme of, "Not bad, Gaki," while giving the impression that it was actually painful. Guy-sensei's assertion that he would regain moderate control inside of 2 months at his present rate of progress, therefore, came as an exceedingly welcome but unexpected surprise. Only his now instinctive fear of the sunset and sea genjutsu kept him from emulating Lee and leaping at his teacher with a yell of, "Guy-sensei." Well, that and the warning glance cast at him by Ba-chan, a glance promising bad things should he not reconsider. And the fact that performing a Rock Lee flying hug with his present control would most likely result in the messy bisection of Konoha's great green beast. That too. Still, Naruto could tell from their expressions that they knew how he felt. Backstep, evasion, palm strike. The kata was a bit smoother today. A good sign. He. Oh Yuko, you naughty girl. Naruto's eyebrow twitched as he struggled to maintain the smooth motions required. What did I say about the giggling, Arrow Fox? Empty threats, Gaki. You really want to risk coming inside the seal with me, the Kyuubi no Kitsune? Spiral step, knee strike. I don't need to, Fox. I can bring you down with 6 simple words. Ha, you think you can scare me? Chortled Naruto's nine-tailed tenant. I'd like to see that. The blonde smirked. Remember Fox, you asked for it. Hey Tenten-chan, what's your favorite weapon? Somehow, Naruto could tell the Kyuubi had gone chalk white. No, I take it back. Please, not the twinkling. Not the twinkling. Too late for that, Fuzzy. Naruto chuckled inwardly as he stepped through the final motions of the kata, Tenten's excited spiel music to his ears. Break the rules, pay the price. This is cruel and unusual punishment and you know it. It was interesting, he thought as Tenten continued chattering through the lunch preparations, that she could talk about weapons for so long and yet not have it get boring. Where Naruto's thoughts on weaponry to date could be essentially summed up as, kunai, shuriken, exploding tags. All good. Tenten's impassioned dialogue on the merits of kusarigama, tonfa, katar, chakram and any number of others he'd never even heard of was opening his eyes. But on the whole, I think I like swords the best, because of the versatility. Oh thank you, Inari-sama. Thank you. Suck it up, Fox. You brought this on yourself. Anyo. Naruto-kun? Said Tenten, uncharacteristic hesitation in her voice. No, please, no more. Yeah, Tenten-chan? Ignoring the questioning looks from her teammates as they unpacked their lunches, the bun-haired Kunoichi drew a wrapped bundle from somewhere and handed it to him with a nervous smile. Shizune-san said you had trouble eating because bowls and stuff are too fragile, right? Well, I thought about it and made these for you and I hope you like them. Handing the bundle to the blonde, Tenten busied herself with her bento and made a valiant effort to hide her blush. Damn it, what the hell was that? She silently berated herself. It's just a gift to help him eat, so why the hell am I acting like I'm giving him chocolates on Valentine's, for Kami's sake? Gah! Ignorant of his friend's inner rant, Naruto excitedly unwrapped the bundle. His eyes widened. Tenten-chan, this. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. Good going, Tenten, nice. Awesome, huh? As Tenten whipped her head up, she was nearly blinded by the happiness in Naruto's smile as he hugged the metal bowl, cup and hashi set to his chest. Why you like them? This time it was Naruto who looked incredulous. Like them? Are you kidding? This is the greatest gift I've ever gotten. You're the best, Ten-chan. Yosh. Tenten-chan, your skill at gift-giving proves your flames of youth to be blazing forth. Well done, my youthful student. If Naruto's smile had been bright, the glare from Guy's teeth as he assumed the nice guy pose was like a solar prominence. Yes, yelled Lee in support. I must strive to be as considerate and generous as Tenten-chan. If I cannot, I will write 1,000 original greeting card messages with my feet. Lee, Guy-sensei. Lee, Guy-sensei. Duck and cover, Gaki. It was a testament to how much the blonde liked the gift that he continued rhapsodizing even as he averted his gaze from the youthful scene. The bowl, cup and hashi were a brushed silver gray in appearance and, he discovered with a very tentative test squeeze, possessed of considerable tensile strength. Upon closer inspection, they even had the Uzumaki spiral engraved on the bottom. How cool was that? And so it was that Shizune arrived at the training ground to see an ecstatic Naruto, a blushing Tenten and Neji, Lee and Guy hiding smirks. Would someone like to fill me in on recent events? I get the feeling something interesting has happened. Oh, Ten-chan made me this awesome bowl and cup and hashi set, Shizune-ni-chan. Now I don't have to worry about breaking bowls or biting through chopsticks anymore, so I can feed myself. Isn't that awesome? Ten-chan's the best. Smiling through a sudden and inexplicable stab of jealousy, Shizune sat down and produced the promised 2 bowls of ramen. Yes, that's wonderful Naruto-kun. We should probably still have me feed you today, though. There could be some hidden weaknesses in the metal, and you wouldn't want the ramen to go to waste, would you? Hidden weaknesses, growled Tenten, not noticing the male members of her team edging away as the implied criticism of her work broke her from her blushes. There are no weaknesses in my work, thank you. Those are high tensile ferric titanium alloy. They can take Naruto-kun's strength easily. Tell her, Naruto. Yes, tell us, Naruto-kun. Naruto, his expression not unlike that of a rabbit facing an oncoming Kaiden jutsu, thought faster than he ever had before. Hurry up, Gaki, this looks bad. How about Shizune Nichan feeds me the first bowl, just in case, and I use Ten-chan's gift for the second to see how I do. I still have a lot of control to work on, after all. A pair of slightly grudging agreements led to the welcome but slightly nerve-wracking experience of being fed ramen with a hostile audience. Soon, though not as quickly as the blonde would have liked, the first bowl was empty and the moment of truth had arrived. Never in the history of Konoha had a bowl of soon-to-be-eaten ramen generated such rapt attention. The hashi descended into the broth, Naruto's face a study in concentration, and rose bearing a swirl of noodles, before an involuntary twitch of the fingers sheared them apart. Damn it, okay, try again. Again the hashi fell and again they rose bearing their precious cargo. Higher, higher. The watchers released a breath they hadn't known they'd been holding as the noodles reached their destination. The tension resumed, however, as Naruto went for the second bite. This tastes even better than usual, he thought. Wonder if Tuchi Ojisan's trying a new dashi recipe or something. Or maybe you're finally eating slow enough to actually taste it, brat. About to snap back a rejoinder at the vulpine annoyance, he paused and thought. Hey, that actually makes sense. Of course it does. When have I ever steered you wrong? Snapped the Kyuubi in an offended tone. Oops, shut up. Noting from the musical, tink, of metal hashi on the bottom of the bowl that he had continued eating right through his inner dialogue, he neatly placed the sticks aside and took the bowl in two hands. Right, time for the final test. His audience once more held their breath as he raised it to his mouth, the remaining broth to consume. The watchers held their breath once more. This was it. This was the moment of make or break. Would the bowl bend, crack, break? Would there be tooth marks on the rim? Or would Tenten's workmanship win the day? Largely oblivious, Naruto marveled at what was rapidly becoming his favorite possession ever. Apart from a faint groan when he picked it up, the bowl showed no signs of strain at all. Swallowing the last of the pungent broth, Hai no Kuni's premier ramen lover and slightly unwilling powerhouse lowered the bowl with a satisfied sigh. Oh man, I needed that. It tasted so good too. His joyful chatter trailed off as he noticed the recumbent figures, his audience having collapsed from the release of tension. Anyo, are you guys okay? We're fine, reassured Tenten as she dragged herself upright once again. Just a little tired. So, she continued hopefully, how'd the bowl work for you? Naruto's smile broadened. Oh, it's awesome Ten-chan. It creaked a little at first, but that just means I can work on my control while I eat. Seriously, this is the best gift ever. What a youthful training concept, Naruto-kun. Controlling hand and finger strength through eating delicate foods in fragile vessels. Such youthful insight. The flames in Guy's eyes were on the verge of igniting nearby foliage in his excitement. Yosh, the eccentric Junin roared as he leapt to his feet. I shall begin the Uzumaki food training immediately. I shall eat 50 cubes of silken tofu from an unfired clay bowl in 5 minutes without breaking a single one. And if you cannot, I will eat 10 serves of steamed soba from rice paper cups, Guy-sensei. Yes, our youthfulness will grow as our bodies are nourished, all thanks to you, Naruto-kun. Absent-mindedly averting his gaze from the green-clad duo's manly man hug, Naruto picked up from where he had left off, to Neji's amusement, Tenten's slight embarrassment and Shizune's silent discontent. Really, Ten-chan, this is great. He sniffled suddenly, tears glistening. With this gift, you have given back ramen to me. Another sniffle. I'll never be able to repay you for this kindness, Tenten-chan, but I swear to you I'll try. Hell's bells, Gaki, it's just ramen. The Kyuubi gulped as it felt the mindscape get abruptly colder at its words. Never, ever, say those words again. You get me, fox? Or what, brat? 2 words. Gelding knife. I'll be good. Naruto smirked. Intimidating the king of the Biju? Lotta cool points there, no ifs or buts about it. A few minutes later saw Guy and Lee finished with the hug and the genin stowing their lunch supplies as Shizune, followed by Neji's wistful stare, returned to the tower. Struggling through the gauntlet of swinging logs, Naruto contemplated current events and smiled faintly. Tenten didn't know it yet, probably wouldn't know it for quite some time, in fact, but her simple gift had won her a devoted and eternal friend. Dodging a log, he chuckled. His list of precious people had just gotten larger. Tsunade growled as she rubbed her temples and longed for sake. Alright, this, she said finally, gesturing to a file lying on her desk, is not so much a report as it is an outline, and barely even that. This being the case, you will now tell me, in detail that will astound you and leaving nothing out, exactly what happened on your last mission. Team 7 glared at itself. More accurately, Sasuke and Sakura glared at Naruto, who glared defiantly back while throwing an occasional dirty look at Kakashi. Sensing that the collective, killing you with my glare of anger, contest stood to last a while should nothing be done, the blonde Hokage slapped a hand on the desk for attention. Now that all gazes were on her, and ignoring the new crack in the wood, she spoke. Alright, if that's the way it's going to be, I'll get the report from everyone. Naruto, you first. From the team meeting when you received the mission assignment. Recognizing her expression as a number 42, do as I say or experience unpowered flight, the blonde nodded sullenly. Okay. We were at the meeting, waiting for Kakashi-sensei. The combined forces of Kumo, Otto and Kusa could not dent Naruto's good mood this morning, much less the broodiness of one teammate and the shrillness of the other. Nope, Naruto's mood was far above such mundane threats to its existence. Why? Because of two very important events, the first being the long-awaited release of Kakashi-sensei from the tender mercies of Konoha Central, his bones having knit, his muscles having healed and his eyes no longer seeing double. Well, apart from that rather cruel prank played by Kumi and Umi, identical twins working in the morons ward, but that was a tale for another time. The other, and rather more important, in Naruto's mind, event was that Guy-sensei had, at long last and after much grueling training and many manly man hugs, pronounced his control sufficiently high to once again accept missions. As a result, Naruto's grin was on the verge of removing the top of his head. At last, missions. Finally, Gama-chan's poor empty tummy would swell once again. And so it was that Naruto sat, leaning against a post of the bridge that was their usual meeting place. Ignoring the grumbling of one teammate and the brooding of the other, he concentrated instead on twirling a pair of training spheres in each hand. For an exercise designed to improve dexterity and finger control, it was actually pretty soothing, he thought. Even the gentle, steady scrape of the steel was kinda nice. Knock it off, Baka. Although judging by the vein appearing on Sakura's forehead, this was a minority opinion. The clenched fist and initial flickers of the flames of female rage, genjutsu, were something of a giveaway as well. Fortunately for Sakura's knuckles and Naruto's skull, however, the puff of smoke heralding the arrival of their errant sensei served to draw the Pinkette's ire onto a safer target. Yo, you're late, was the snarled reply. You were supposed to be released yesterday. Yeah, about that. It seems I had a flare-up and they had to keep me another day. You mean you tried to grab Kumi-san's butt on the way out and Umi-san kicked you in the balls, Kakashi-sensei? Oh yes, that's what I was after, thought Naruto at the shocked, surprised looks of his companions. Payback. Ahahahaha. You, how? Stuttered Kakashi, visible eye shocked. Shizune Nichan told me. Ah, right, okay. She said you screamed like a 5-year-old girl. The mission is. How long did you need to keep the ice pack on? 5 hours, wasn't it? The mission. Umi-san does kickboxing, you see, explained Naruto to his increasingly amused teammates, utterly ignoring the angry glower of his teacher. Naruto, shut up. Saw her kick through an inch of plywood once. Shut up. It's amazing Kakashi-sensei can walk at all, really. Demon head no jutsu. Naruto, shut up and listen. Hi? I'll have to thank Iruka for teaching me that, thought the scarecrow, taking a moment to collect himself. Right, now that I have your attention, Naruto, I'll give you the details. We've been given a retrieval, escort mission to the castle of the Fire Daimyo in the capital and back. One of the nobles has died and left his clan library to Konoha. We will be collecting and bringing it back here. Okay, questions? It's not a jutsu library, is it, Kakashi-sensei? Queried Sakura with a frown. I didn't think civilians were allowed them. Good question. In fact, all the law forbids is the use of jutsu for civilians, not the ownership. Can't have a clan penalized just because they have no active ninja in their ranks, after all. No, it's a deliberate legal loophole. Anyway, it's not just a jutsu library, as it happens. It seems Takata Dono was an inveterate bookworm. The library consists of, checking the mission scroll, he continued. 830 volumes on pretty much every subject possible. We'll be using specialized sealing scrolls to transport them back. Risks? Ah, Sasuke, master of the sullen, one-word question, thought Naruto with a small grimace. The usual bandits, with a slight risk of samurai from rival clans after the library. Nothing too worrisome. I've got a bad feeling about this. No more questions? Continued Kakashi. Okay then. Wait. Kakashi-sensei. What's the rank of this mission? Let it be a B rank, let it be a B rank. It's AC rank, Naruto. Why? The Junin said with a confused look, wondering at the apprehension on the blonde Genin's features. No reason. Okay, anyway. The lazy Junin cast one final odd look at Naruto before turning back to the others. Gather supplies for a 7-day mission and meet back here in 1 hour. Dismissed. As the members of Team 7 departed for their homes, Naruto remained, pale and sweating. AC rank. Great. Better get my tools. And so, facing the terrible threat, I went forth. Naruto, shut up with the epic storyteller shtick, growled Tsunade. You've been hanging around with Jiraiya too much. Sasuke, your turn. Hi. Sakura and I arrived at the bridge at the same time. Naruto was already there. During their time as teammates, Sasuke and Sakura had come to accept the fact that Naruto was a little odd. The twin obsessions with ramen and orange, for example. His unusual verbal mannerisms. The frog theme he seemed to be developing. By and large, however, these eccentricities were fairly mild, at least when compared to some of the other ninja in the village, and thus, easily written off. The scene that greeted the two as they arrived at the meeting place, however, was sufficiently beyond the borders of normal, that they could only stare in mute bewilderment. Their blonde teammate, clad in orange hooded robe, green bandana and tricorn hat, was kneeling at what looked to be a 2-level altar hastily constructed of fieldstone and muttering to himself. To his right, a pot was suspended over a campfire, the multitude of empty ramen packets giving mute testimony as to its contents. Still muttering, and utterly ignoring his confused teammates, Naruto moved to the pot and began to stir, allowing the audience to note the 3 idols previously obscured by the robe. To the lower right was a stylized statue of a fox that Sakura recognized to be Inari. That's a bit of an odd choice. Inari's not too popular anymore. Not since the Kyuubi. To the lower left, a seated figure that seemed to have the head of an elephant. What kind of god has an elephant's head? Wondered Sasuke, with a frown. Well, that's got to be the strangest. No, I stand corrected. It was the 3rd idol that broke the Uchiha's conviction. Positioned above the first 2 and in the center of the altar, as though superior, was what looked like nothing so much as a clump of noodles and meatballs. A pair of eye stalks adding the perfect final touch of strangeness to an already odd scene. Only Naruto would worship a mess of noodles, the 2 watchers thought in unknowing unison. The reader should perhaps be given an explanation at this point. Naruto, due to his reputation and tenet, had never been welcome in the usual halls of spiritual learning during his formative years. As such, little Naruto, seeking as most do some manner of higher truth and being denied access to the mainstream, was driven to the more fringe-based faiths. Inari, once influential and now sadly faded in worship, was currently served by a single priest at a rundown shrine outside the village walls. Naruto had found the shrine while running from some moderately upset Anbu after a prank involving water balloons, 3 rats and some applied geometry, and had been captivated by the stories of the priest, as well as the cheeky look on the face of the guardian fox statue. Lord Ganesha he had read about in an old scroll while painfully bored in Konoha Shinobi Library. The notion of having the remover of obstacles on his side had, after a little thought, seemed a very good and useful thing. And then there was the last. He had learned about the flying spaghetti monster at the same time as Ganesha, in what he had initially thought was an ancient jutsu scroll, borrowed from the restricted section. True, the scroll had been so rotted and mildewed that a lot of the details had been lost, but he'd gotten the gist of it. A god made of noodles. Could there be a more fitting deity for Uzumaki Naruto? After all, if noodles were the ultimate food, and quite obviously were, then it followed that a god of noodles was the ultimate god. His very own personal supreme power. How cool was that? Which led to Naruto, clad all in flowing orange and wearing the sacred three-cornered hat, so similar to the Hokage hat, too. An omen. Pouring the sacred noodly offering into a bowl on the altar and intoning the appropriate prayer. Irhe ime, idime lying fe agetaspe onsterme. Irhe ime, aftikre anarimai. Irhe ime, indke aneshige. Naruto? Except ni isthe offering ne and ne ant gray usnay orye lessing bay. Naruto. Isple, et le isthe ijan me otni o gay all ne otai apcray and ne et gay ime osp idolized hey. Oi, Dobi. A vein appeared on the forehead of the chanting blonde. Pushing the irritation aside, he continued. And ne, if ne uye old kindfay it ne ustj. Lispe ikstre ethe emite ithwe ightninglay. Athe ehayight me inoli fe utupshe. Stop ignoring us, Baka. The blonde turned with a sharp sigh, a distinctly annoyed cast to his usually cheerful features. Sakura, I am doing this for your benefit as well as mine, so could you and the Teme leave me alone so I can concentrate? What are you doing here anyway, Dobi? Asked Sasuke, smoothly cutting off Sakura's potential tirade. Praying for what exactly? Stifling a groan and realizing the futility of trying to evade further questioning, Naruto turned and faced his comrades. Okay, fine. I am making an offering to Inari-sama, Ganesha, remover of obstacles and the flying spaghetti monster for protection on this mission. What the hell? As Sakura quietly wondered about the state of her teammates' spiritual, not to mention mental, health, the Uchiha frowned in confusion. Why would we need protection for this mission, Dobi? It's just a C rank. Naruto snorted in disdain. Hey, right, just a C rank. Tell me, Sasuke, have you noticed anything in particular about the C rank missions this team gets assigned? Something related to escalation? What are you talking about, Baka? Well, let's examine the evidence, shall we, Sakura? C rank mission number 1. Zabuza, Haku, Gatu, and the Teme being turned into a pincushion. C rank mission number 2. The Chunin exams. Orochimaru, Gaara, the invasion. C rank mission number 3, the mission to Snow. Chakra armor, lost princesses, me nearly drowning. C rank mission number 4, the Natu incident. Both listeners shuddered at the memory, hints of green coming to their features. And most recently, continued the ranting blonde, unruffled at the discomfort of his audience, the escort mission that got me hit with a torture jutsu. My strength boosted to an insane level and my control shot all to hell. The C ranks this team takes are clearly cursed. This being the case, he growled, calming down a little from his near shouting of a moment ago, I am getting a little divine help to keep this mission from getting us, or rather, me, killed. Now if you don't mind, he said, turning sharply back to the altar, I'd like to finish up here and get this mission over with. Okay? Silent nods were the only answer. Giving a short huff of satisfaction, Naruto went back to his chanting, not seeing the glances exchanged behind him. What the hell? I know. Weird. Tsunade made a note in Naruto's file to have a long and serious talk about his religious beliefs. Soon. Alright, enough. Kakashi, you're up. Casually tucking away his ubiquitous orange book, the scrawny Junin spoke in a lazy voice. When I arrived, an hour late, quiet, Naruto. Naruto had finished up. I assigned him the task of carrying the sealing scrolls. We set off and made it to the capital 3 days later. Damn it, Hitaki, details. Interrupted Tsunade with a snarl. Ma, it's all boring stuff anyway, Hokage-sama. Grr. Anyo, I'll take over the report if you like, Hokage-sama. Still glowering at Kakashi, who had by now retrieved his book and was reading once more, Tsunade nonetheless cast a grateful nod to Sakura and settled back in her chair. We set off at a moderate run for the capital. Why the hell am I the pack mule? Grumbled Naruto. The reason for his current state of irritation was the 3 scrolls, each some 30 centimeters in diameter and 60 in length, strapped to his back. Sure, it wasn't as though the weight was really all that perceptible or anything, but it was the principle of the thing. 3 scrolls, 3 people. The fair thing to do would be to give one to each of them, but no. Naruto's gotten stronger, naturally he just loved to carry all the goods. No, it was pretty clear that Naruto was not enjoying the mission thus far. And truth to tell, neither were his teammates. The weather had turned to foul about 3 hours out from Konoha, dumping a torrential downpour on the 4 shinobi before settling into a soaking drizzle which persisted until nightfall. The storage scrolls had, with admirable forethought, been wrapped in waterproof oilskins. The ninja, however, had not. Then there was the fact that trees are, when wet, thoroughly aggravating to leap between, even with the tree walking trick to rely on wet bark conducting chakra differently to dry. This was an even bigger problem for Naruto, as it turned out. It seemed no one had thought to point out to the bombastic blonde that density equals weight, a fact that became evident the first time Naruto attempted to stick to a tree only to peel a great streak of bark from the trunk on his brief but painful trip to the ground. You had to admit, considered Sakura as Team 7 made for that night's safe house, Naruto had a surprisingly broad vocabulary for someone his age, at least in certain specific areas. Still, as entertaining as it was to listen to Naruto swear for 3 full minutes without once repeating himself, the grumbling with which he was currently filling the air was becoming more than somewhat annoying. As such, Sakura, being the most mature member of her team, in her view at least, responded accordingly. "Shut up, Baka. Never mind. I was wondering how long it'd take for one of them to snap," thought Kakashi, absent-mindedly disarming the pink head of the tree branch she was enthusiastically swinging at the blonde. "That's enough, you two. Naruto, please stop complaining. Now, you are the strongest, so you carry the greatest load." The blonde powerhouse sulkily folded his arms, muttering something about forming a union. "Sakura, stop trying to concuss your teammate." Naruto's pout lessened slightly. "His skull's too tough to hurt and you might damage the scrolls." Only to descend back into shadow. "Maybe I should start a support group. Underappreciated Ninja Anonymous. Those 2 gate guys could join, and Kankuro." So engrossed was Naruto in growling to himself and planning future workplace action that he very nearly overshot the rest point to which Kakashi had been leading them. Not that that was a hard thing to do, really. It was a ninja rest point, after all. In examining the architecture of a building, one can learn a great deal about the character and values of the culture or profession for which it was built. A samurai, trained in war and battle since youth, will, when considering a potential building, focus on certain things. How will I make this building defensible? He will ask. How will I arrange matters for it to provide both protection and strength of attack? Thus, the home of a samurai will, to a greater or lesser extent, generally dependent on the rank and status of the samurai in question, resemble a castle. Strong and tall exterior walls, oblique and confusing entry points, and at least one well-concealed emergency exit. Put simply, samurai will, given the option, basically treat their homes as a very large suit of armor. Ninja, however, have a very different attitude and set of design principles to a samurai. While known on occasion to wear armor, a ninja would generally far prefer not to be in the position of getting hit in the first place. As with the samurai, this attitude is borne out in shinobi architecture, an attitude that may be accurately summarized thus. They can't hit what they can't find. Make it plain and unassuming, the ninja will say. Make it dull, boring and easy to ignore. Hell, make it flat out invisible. And incidentally, when it comes to giving a place that nice, homey feel, a few miscellaneous lethal and borderline lethal booby traps are always stylish, right? Which goes a long way towards explaining why Safe House 23, that evening's destination, was entirely underground, its entrance concealed among the gnarled roots of a 3th-century tree and 3 layers of permanent genjutsu seals. The author feels Naruto can be forgiven for missing it, really. 3 quiet thumps, followed by a rather louder one from Naruto, were all that heralded Team 7's arrival at the entrance. "Okay, Team 7, welcome to Safe House 23, said Kakashi in a tone that was really far too cheery for the prevailing conditions. "We have these scattered throughout Fire Country, mostly along the main trade routes. The location varies, but the Junin brushed some moss from the massive roots to reveal the kanji for fire and tree. If you find these engraved on a surface, the entrance will be within a 5-meter radius." The cycloptic shinobi paused a moment to enjoy the looks of barely contained impatience on his genin. Is this how Iruka feels all the time? I can see why he does it. Anyway, he continued, the entrances are always hidden under a permanent, one-way genjutsu, keyed to a password. Ahem. Wool of fire. The genin stared as an entrance completely failed to appear. Oh, wait, yeah, this is a Tuesday. My bad. Okay, Hirai-ishin. The sound of cracking knuckles drifted from Sakura as Naruto slowly drew a kunai and Sasuke's hands drifted into the tiger seal. Okay. Wait, it's the waning moon, before dusk and there's 4 of us, ah. Okay, no killing, I got it, the increasingly edgy Junin muttered, subtly preparing to flee in the event that his next guess prove wrong as well. Taking a deep breath, he spoke. Icha Tactics, page 23. Fortunately for Kakashi's hide, and blood, bones, spleen, there came a shimmer of discharging chakra and, with no fanfare whatsoever, a neat set of concrete stairs flickered into view. I'm really glad that worked, thought the laconic ninja. Well, let's go in and get dried up. Come on. As they stared after their sensei, one thought was occupying the minds of the 3 genin, naturally falling to Naruto to give it voice. Who the hell came up with that password? Wow, thought Naruto as he reached the bottom of the stairs and took in the view. It's exactly as I imagined it. Naruto would probably have described the room as Spartan, at least if he had known what Spartan meant. Circular it was, in that delightfully cheery, concrete gray, so beloved by government contractors throughout the universe, its contents minimal. A table and chairs, a sink, stove and set of cupboards and a trio of doors at the opposite side of the room from the entrance. You can tell Ninja designed this place, thought the blonde as he eased the scrolls to the floor, placed his pack beside them and arched his back with a great crackling of vertebrae. Okay, time for dinner, he muttered, carefully rummaging for his supplies. Let's see, I had miso last night, so tonight it's. Naruto's face fell as an unwelcome memory presented itself. Ration bars, seeing as I used half my supplies to seek the noodly one's divine favor. Damn it, slumping down in one of the spare seats, a meat-flavored ration bar in front of him. Naruto wished once again for the kind of face that could look good sulking. Not that he was that prone to the practice, of course. It was just that for some reason the expression that, on the teme, had women sighing over his brooding angsty broodiness gained for the blonde nothing but rolled eyes or, on a very small minority of older women, squeals of, kawaii, and cheek pinching. Still, though his face, changed though it was, remained unsuitable for sulking, Naruto was having a go at it. Oh sure, Teme and Sakura-chan can eat. Teme and Sakura-chan can buy the non-overdue ration bars. Teme and Sakura-chan are unbelievers, so no sacrificing half their ramen rations for the sake of the mission, no. Driven by a particularly loud growl from his stomach, a friendly warning to him that, should sustenance not be forthcoming, it would be quite happy to scale his esophagus and go hunting on its own, the orange-loving youth began a semi-frantic search of his person. Maybe there's a decent tasting bar here or something. Can't risk looking in the pack, too much temptation. Kunai, bingo book, shuriken, scroll, kunai, shuri. Wait, back up. The scroll was about 15 centimeters in length and, judging by the thickness, about 3 to 4 meters long. A tag decorated with a chibi shizune giving the peace sign under the legend, Uzumaki Mission Care Package, affixed to the tie holding it closed gave testimony to its origin. Shizune Nichan's really sneaky, to plant this on me without me knowing. Releasing the tie, Naruto's eyes widened at the sight of the characters on the parchment. If this is what I think it is, I am so gonna owe Shizune Nichan when I get back. Oi, Dobi, what's with the ceiling scroll? Naruto smirked at the brooding avenger. Someone likes me, I guess. Sasuke's somewhat confused rejoinder was drowned out as a slight popping sound and puff of smoke heralded the unsealing of. Thank you, Shizune Nichan. A good-sized cauldron of steaming hot tonkatsu ramen. Taking in the delightful smell of his bounty, the envious looks on the faces of his formerly amused teammates and calculating the number of ramen seals that could fit onto a 4-meter scroll, Naruto smiled blissfully. Maybe this mission'll be okay after all. Of course, I was wrong. After we got to the capital. Naruto, stop taking over the report. No one wants to hear about your stupid ramen scroll. It's better than you just squealing about Sasuke-kun. Besides, you liked my ramen scroll well enough the second night out when that tanuki got into your ration bars. The melodic sound of wood splintering on knuckles drew Pink and Blonde's attention back to the Hokage, now fixing them with her famed, desist or be reduced to paste, glare. Thank you, she said to the sudden silence. Now, in the interests of brevity, Naruto will deliver the report, with the rest of you chiming in where necessary. Naruto, unless it is immediately relevant, there will be no further mention of ramen. Clear? Contrary to popular Konoha belief, Naruto could in fact be professional when the situation called for it. Judging by the expression on Tsunade Baon's face, this was one of those times. Naruto stiffened to attention and continued. Okay, the rest of the trip to the capital was uneventful. When we arrived, however, shouldn't the gates be open, Kakashi-sensei? Asked Sakura as they gazed at the monolithic slabs of timber and steel obstructing their path. Yeah, agreed Naruto, a puzzled frown on his face. I mean, it's still daylight, after all. It is a little strange, I'll admit, mused the Junin, nose for once not in his book. It's not as though they really risk attack in the middle of the capital. No, this, most likely, is a political gesture. The uncomprehending looks cast at him by the three genin warmed his heart. At last, a chance to show why he was the sensei. Politics, he said, clearing his throat, is ultimately about power. Ninja have power, far beyond that of the average civilian, which, as a result, causes the average civilian to fear ninja. Nobles, however, are in a position where they are able to even the score, so to speak. In having the gates closed for our arrival, someone is basically telling us, you are ninja, but I am above you. The silver-haired scarecrow eyes smiled as understanding dawned on the faces of the two attentive genin. Hang on, he had 3 genin, not 2. Where was? Oh no. As though through the Sharingan, he watched in mounting horror as the orange-loving blonde walked purposefully toward the gates. Kakashi could almost hear his thought process. The gate is closed. We are on this side of the gate. We must move to that side of the gate. To do that, the gates must be opened. How can this be achieved? Answer. Knock. Which he promptly did. Oi, Naruto. Foom, foom, crunch shriek crack. Never mind, sighed Kakashi as he watched a chagrined Naruto edge away from the sizable hole now punched in the gates. Mental note. Suggest the creation of acts of shinobi insurance coverage. Well, he joined the others in glaring at the embarrassed blonde as fortress guards formed a professional, albeit nervous, perimeter around them. Now that we have their attention, Naruto, I will arrange for us to be presented to the client. Remember, when we are with him, be professional, respectful and, he cast a firm look at the blonde, quiet. Understand? Hi. Nodding in approval and turning to the guard captain, waiting nearby with the air of one who is not being paid enough to deal with stuff like this, Kakashi paused and turned once more to Naruto. Oh yeah, one more thing. The embarrassed youth, formerly occupied with avoiding eye contact, jerked to attention. Until we are once more outside and well away from buildings, walls, trees and other fragile objects, your hands will remain in your pockets. Clear? Hi, grumbled Naruto, putting the words to deed to the poorly concealed amusement of his teammates. Good, said their laconic leader with a brisk clap of the hands. Now, let's go meet the client. Well, chuckled Tsunade quietly. That at least sheds some light on this bill for gate repair I received from the capital. And the restraining order requesting Naruto not be allowed within 20 meters of the fortress outer curtain walls. Stupid nobles. Punch a hole in one measly gate and they get all worked up. You put your fist through the daimyo's gate, Baka. How do you think they'd react? Sakura half shrieked. Shouldn't have made it so flimsy, then, grumbled the sulking shinobi. Dobi, 40 centimeters of ironwood with a steel sheathing is not flimsy. Wood was probably rotten. Anyway, interjected Tsunade, knowing in her bones that this would prove to be a 3-bottle report. Save the arguments for later, when I am not present, and continue. Hi Baon, said Naruto, shaking off his sulk. After Kakashi-sensei explained things and all the archers, spearmen, samurai, slingers and everyone else went away, we all went to see the client. That was when the next surprise showed up. And so, I'm so very glad to have this collection in safe hands, my boy. Why, I've been Takata-kun's librarian for a good 60 years now, and he looked at, too. Daihin-san had the look of a normal man from whom every drop of moisture had been removed. Gaunt, spindly, somehow leathery, even. In fact, thought Naruto, he looked like what a man with a giant, demonic book sealed into him might look like. I mean, Gaara's got those tanuki rings around his eyes, after all. Paper white hair, dark, leathery skin, that slight creaking sound as he moved. It was so obvious. And I'm sure Konoha will benefit from all these texts. Over 1,000 scrolls alone, and at least as many codices. All the donations. Anyo, Kakashi-sensei, asked Sakura hesitantly. Didn't our mission brief specify 830 scrolls only? Quite right, Sakura, replied the Junin, ignoring Naruto's muttered, I knew it, just knew it. Escalation. Daihin-san, a moment please. Our mission brief specified 830 items in total, not 2,000. Would you mind explaining? Literally, bookish librarian sighed sheepishly. I'm afraid that is an effect of clan politics. Taking in the 4-part blank stares, he gave a slight grin and continued down the hall, explaining as he went. Essentially, you have fallen victim to a game of one-upmanship between several noble clans. You see, when Takata Dono willed his library to Konohagakure, it was seen as a generous act, an act for which his clan gained a good deal of prestige. Drawing the key from the sleeve of his robe, he unlocked a rather massive-looking door and gestured the 4 shinobi through before continuing. Of course, the other clans couldn't let that pass uncontested, so each of the clans involved went through their own libraries for texts to add to the donation, mostly ones they had no real use for. And this, he gestured dramatically at a vast pile of literary lumber, is the result. Now, placed upon a shelf, books have a tendency to look deceptively small. In reality, however, books are by nature bulky objects, a fact discovered by every student required by circumstance to carry their textbooks to every class. Scrolls, being cylindrical and thus far less efficiently stacked, or even worse. 2,000 large codices and bulky scrolls, all stacked on a table, can be a rather intimidating sight. The reader is invited to verify this fact themselves. Not even the vibrant Naruto could bring himself to speak right away. That's a lot of books, all in one place. Well, said Kakashi briskly, shaking off the slight sense of awe. We'll seal as many as we can into the scrolls, starting with Takata Dono's contribution. We can work out what to do with the rest later. Sakura, Sasuke, get sealing. Naruto, don't touch anything. As the sound of quiet pops filled the room, Naruto stalked over to a chair and sat, silently fuming. Yeah, work out what to do with the rest later. I'll tell you what we'll do. Put the scrolls and the rest on my back. Grr, you seem a bit upset, Uzumaki-san. Is something wrong? Looking up, Naruto gave a half-hearted grin to the librarian. Just call me Naruto please. Uzumaki-san, makes me think I'm in trouble. He sighed. I accidentally broke something outside, so now I'm not allowed to help with the books. Just carry the sealing scrolls. This won him a look of sympathy from the old man. Yes, I can see how that would be frustrating. You seem like an active young man, so to be forced to be idle would be annoying. This guy's good, thought the blonde. There was a moment of silence before a passing thought caught Naruto's mind. Hey, Daihin-san. What are all these books and things about? I mean, they can't all be on jutsu and techniques, right? Indeed, replied the leathery librarian approvingly. Virtually every subject imaginable is represented in this collection. Here, have a look at the master catalog and see for yourself. Taking the coil of tough rag paper gingerly, Naruto took in the first few titles and gawked. Your Kunai and you, Shinobi are from fire, Kunoichi are from cloud. The physics of Ikebana, the hell? Yes, the range of topics is rather broad, chuckled the older man at the younger's reaction. As I said, this endeavor was seen as a way to dispose of unwanted texts as much as a way to gain prestige. Naruto continued scanning the list, his expression growing steadily more incredulous. A guide to lizard racing. Applied chemistry in a combat situation. I never knew there were so many things to write about. Every subject imaginable, agreed the librarian. Whenever someone has explored an interest and recorded the results, there will be a book about it somewhere. That's so cool. I'm glad we're getting this stuff for Konoha. The library, there's just jutsu scrolls and training manuals. Nothing like cooking for a clan gathering. Daihin frowned slightly. I can imagine the ninja library would be somewhat specialized, but surely the civilian. Oh yeah, I suppose they would have more subjects, but they never let me in. Never. You were never allowed into a public library? Asked the man in what would, in a lesser mortal than a librarian, be called a growl. To refuse someone access to knowledge. Some librarians were going to have an extremely intimate encounter with a dating stamp if he ever made it to Konoha, Daihan decided. Still, that task, as pleasant as it would no doubt turn out to be, was for the future. Right now he had a tragically book-deprived youth to encourage. Attending once again to Naruto, still exclaiming at the titles on the master list, the gaunt bibliophile thought for a moment before a smile flickered over his features. So, Naruto-san, do you see anything of interest there? Oh yeah, definitely, exclaimed the blonde. This stuff sounds so cool. Well then, smirked the older man, I think I have a suggestion. Which reminds me, broke off the orange-clad shinobi, pulling a small green-wrapped scroll from a pocket and presenting it to the Hokage's surprised assistant. Here you go, Tsunade-chan. Thank you Naruto-kun. What? Stammered the somewhat off-balance woman. A souvenir from the capital. I want it to be a surprise though, so don't unseal it yet, okay? A growl was heard over Shizune's mumbled agreement, damn it Naruto-kun. Now the anticipation's going to kill me. As Sakura reached a conclusion not to her liking. Naruto, she said, her tone veritably dripping potential violence. Why does Shizune-san get a gift and not your own teammates? A look of innocent confusion appeared on his face as he answered. Well, you guys were at the capital too. If you wanted a souvenir, why didn't you get one yourself? Besides, he continued, his expression firming, I needed to replay Shizune-chan for the ramen scroll. Tsunade had, by this time, discarded the cup in favor of drinking directly from the bottle which she pressed into service as a makeshift gavel to divert the argument before it could take off. Naruto. Report, remember? Okay. We got most of the books sealed and put the rest in my pack, at the cost of half my remaining ramen packets. Sotto voce grumbling filled the air as Team 7 took to the trees through the deepening twilight. Surprisingly, and for perhaps the first time on the mission, said grumbling was not issuing from Naruto. True, the orange-clad powerhouse was not exactly thrilled at having to abandon even more of his holy noodly ambrosia, but that dismay was balanced by several factors. First, due to his pack being filled with books and scrolls, Sakura and the Teme were finally pulling their weight, each laboring under the weight of a sealing scroll. Granted, it wasn't as though he'd really noticed the weight, and he was still carrying the third, but if he could be forced to sacrifice his ramen to mission escalation, then his teammates could carry some scrolls. Second was the fact that, after a hurried conversation with the major domo and the captain of the palace guards, Kakashi-sensei had announced that Team 7 was heading back to Konoha today. Sure, being basically sent to your room after breaking something was a little uncool, but the way he saw it, less time spent on a deadly C-rank mission meant less time in which escalation could get him, Naruto, hurt or killed. Of course, getting back to Tenten-chan, Shizune-chan, Lee, Neji and Guy-sensei was cool as well. Training. Yash. Naruto, what did I tell you about emulating Guy too much? That it would stunt my growth, make me go blind, inhibit my social development and make you compulsively punch me into the wall. That's right, keep that in mind as you continue. Naturally, it was then that the first arrow fell. Take cover, barked Kakashi as Team 7 leapt into the canopy, to the dismay of the platoon of black-armored samurai only now emerging from concealment. Though he still had yet to memorize all the ninja rules, Naruto could recall standard battle tactics quite well. Doctrine stated that the first order of business in this particular situation was to locate the rest of his team. When under massed missile attack, Cell is to take individual cover, thereby dispersing potential targets, and plan from there. Okay. Chakra signatures, there's Sakura, that's the Teme and, Kakashi-sensei. Which means that those other two are, forming a pair of shadow clones as decoys, the blonde bookmobile took once again to the trees, his course taking him back to his team. And almost directly onto an exploding tag, only its telltale hissing and his new reflexes saving him from a severe charring. Riding the adrenaline, not to mention the shockwave, he redoubled his speed through the trees, Sasuke and Sakura appearing to his left as the foliage thinned. What did I tell you? Huh? Escalation, samurai, ninja, explosions. Just a typical C rank. Naruto, calm down, said a newly sunshined Kakashi firmly. Report. At least 2 strong chakra signatures and approximately 30 samurai, replied Sasuke. All mostly mid-level, I'd say. They can only be after the library, stated Kakashi, lazy attitude gone. Sakura, Sasuke, give the sealing scrolls to Naruto. Naruto, make enough clones to provide a distraction and make all speed toward Konoha. Naruto's jaw dropped. What? Let me fight, Kakashi-sensei. I'm stronger now, remember? I can take on. Naruto, this is not a request, barked the silver-haired Junin. It is a direct order from your commanding officer. Take the cargo and head for Konoha. Now, hands trembling in frustration and swearing under his breath, the orange-clad blonde did as he was bade, filling the clearing with decoys and leaping off just as the first pursuers arrived. As sounds of combat filled the air behind him, he grimaced. This is really going to suck, he thought. I just know it. Okay, interjected Tsunade. Sasuke, give me a report of your fight now. Hi.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.